I love having a great day. You know, those days that just work well. You get a lot of great things done. At the end of the day, you almost feel a little bit energized as opposed to that like exhausted feeling. And then you also have those days where it just feels like you're moving from task to task, to project, and you're finding your rhythm. You're finding this flow. And what I want to talk about today is how do you achieve that more often? How do you make sure you have those great days? And for me, it starts with the intention I have first thing in the morning. So, if you want to have more great days, if you want to have more of that flow in your day, and if you want to change things up so you feel more energized towards the end of your day and even throughout your day, today's session is for you. All right, let's dive in. Now, when I talk about this great day, when I talk about this intentional morning, the number one thing I want to ground us in this conversation today is that a great day is a little bit subjective. What we all feel is that flow and that way that we get things done can be very personal to us as individuals. So I want to make sure that when you're thinking about designing your great day, you're not designing a day like mine. You're not designing a great day like someone else that you've heard about or maybe listened to on a podcast. What I want you to realize and also take away from today's session is that I need you to define your great day. What does that look like? What does it feel like? And for some of you, it's about taking a few moments and reminiscing. It's about taking some time and thinking about what happened last week, what happened last month, and when did you have a day where things went well, when things happened differently based on the actions that you've taken. Because we're not talking about, great days because we had a lot of sales or great days because we had an amazing client have a transformation or a great day because something you've been trying to get done you were able to get done. Those are amazing things and we want those to happen in your days. But when I talk about creating these great days, when I talk about the power you have to actually manufacture, in a sense, more great days in your future, we don't just want to look at the result of those days. We want to look at what you did, what changed in the way you approached that day, what changed in the way that you approached that project, what changed in the way that you maybe prepared yourself for that greatness that came. And if you can spend the time to really grasp and get a sense of what that is, I really feel like you'll be able to unlock more great days in the future. So, my number one takeaway for today is to spend some time reflecting on what you've done in the past. And not all the things that you should have done right, because that's, easy for us to go in and criticize and critique and so forth. That's not what this session is about. This session is about remembering you at those great points and thinking about how do we create that again. So, one of your number one takeaways is reflect and find a moment. Find something you did in the moment that helped you create a great day in the past. All right. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to look at your current schedule. Now, for me, I'm always creating these morning routines. And actually, I'm even creating more and more routines on how I manage my day. But one thing I've found over time is that my current schedule, my current approach to my morning and creating those amazing kind of environments and playgrounds where I'm really successful and productive, that has to change for me over time is I kind of get into a rut. I almost get into a situation where what I was doing in the past has to kind of get shaken up a little bit for me to achieve those things that we've achieved in the past. So, therefore, I want to encourage you today to think about changing up your morning schedule. I don't want you to feel like, well, I found something that worked. I found something that created some great, amazing days, but I'm starting to get into a lull. And therefore, you don't make the change you need to make to move forward. Because what can happen is when we find something that works, we hold on tight. We think that it is the thing that's going to carry us always into the future. And today, I want to remind you that if you want to continue having some of those great days, you might have to reevaluate. You might have to reassess your current situation, your current approach to your magical morning, and think about how do you change it up. And honestly, that's been one thing that I've been doing. That's been my biggest kind of challenge in these last few months, is realizing that some things are still working great and other things are just not ideal. And at first, I was struggling because I felt like, well, why isn't this working anymore? This was perfect for me. This had been amazing for me. I was almost kind of like sad that what I had established was not performing at the same level that it was before. And therefore, I was wrestling with myself to try to make what was in my current schedule work for me again. And what my aha moment was is that maybe it's just time to change. I have changed. My life has changed. My business has changed. The world has changed. So, therefore, it may be time for me to change up my morning schedule. So, let me walk you through what my morning schedule is and some of the changes that I'm considering and why, and maybe some of the changes that you should consider in the future. Number one, my morning is really around preparing for my day. Now, most of what I've designed in my schedule, when I think about how I prepare my intentional mornings, is often around the idea that I want to identify these like daily accomplishment moments. I'm trying to establish in my business where I'm not just getting up in the day and just working, working, working throughout the day. And then when I look back at all my time, all my energy, all my effort, I'm not able to say, you know what? I got something done that was pretty cool. I got something done that really changed something for my clients. I did something that was hard, maybe a little bit difficult, but I persevered. I've always tried to design my intentional mornings around that. And I think that was a great place for me to start. It was really important for me, and I'm highly motivated through my accomplishments. I'm really driven by being able to accomplish something really great in the morning has been amazing for me. Now, for some of you, maybe that's not your magical thing. Maybe you need something else in the morning. But I bring this up because this has been one thing that has fueled my day. This has been one thing that has been super amazing about the way I organize my morning. However, one of my changes that I want to make, one of the things that I've seen maybe allow me to grow a little bit is that not only do I need to schedule, think about my morning, create this intentional morning routine around my accomplishments for my business, but I also need more for my personal nourishment. I also need to make sure that my morning is designed not just to make me the best at work, but also make sure it feeds me as Stephanie. And that is something that I missed a little bit. Now, I don't want to make it sound like I wasn't doing anything for myself in the morning because I really was. I had a plan and a way I wake up every day. You know, I wake up at a certain time every day. I actually go walk with my mother most of the mornings. We normally walk about 6 days a week, but every once in a while that slips through and, we may, do a little bit different. But the idea is I get up in the morning, I get outside. It's great. I get a chance to kind of just listening to some music, or lately we've been listening to some podcasts. And then from there, I prepare for my day. So when I talk about this like intentional morning, it's not just how do you prepare to go into the office. It's not just to prepare for your day if you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of organizing your day. It's not just the things that you do in the morning to kind of perk up your day, whether it's a morning smoothie that you do, whether you read in the morning, or maybe you have your morning coffee out on the patio or porch. Those things are great. But when I think of my intentional morning, it's actually from the time I wake up and until I accomplish my first major thing in the business that day. So therefore, for me, it's between 6:30 in the morning all the way to about 11:30. That's my magical morning. So it's a little bit wider, I think, than some people when they think about their morning, because what I found over time and what I found has helped me over time is not just thinking about how do I get out of bed and not be grumpy? How do I get out of bed and not just jump into work, but giving myself some personal time? Is that by thinking about not only what my experience is when I wake up, what my experience is when I'm doing some working out, what is my experience to make sure that I'm eating, but what is my transition from that personal side, and especially we're talking more about this personal nourishment side, back into work, and how do I make sure I move into that accomplishment moment? That's what I want you to think about. And that's one of the things that I'm starting to change is I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting this natural flow from working out personal nourishment to working into my business. And therefore, I'm not putting in this tunnel vision approach where all I'm doing is trying to prepare myself for work that day. And I think that's something that happens to many of us when we think about these mornings, where we think about how do we prepare or what's our morning routine, then sometimes we're putting in a little bit of me time, but the me time is a little bit misguided because sometimes that me time is just to get us to the accomplishment. And one thing that I really want to do differently, and one thing I want to encourage you to do differently, is to make sure when you think about your me time in the morning, that me time has a level of personal nourishment in it, meaning there's an actual activity in there that's really for you. And I bring this up because what used to be, or at least I thought was my personal nourishment moment, was working out. And I thought that because working out was so important to me. I tend to sit in my chair during the day. Nowadays, I do a lot of these sessions like I'm doing right now. I'm doing it standing up so that, I'm moving around a little bit, getting the blood flowing. But I do kind of stay in the same location spot most of the day. So therefore, I thought my morning needed to have exercise in it. My morning needed to include me working out. I had some visions around me getting in shape. And also, I thought it was good for me to kind of get going in the morning before I started work. And I love that idea. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it. Not only do I take a walk in the morning, often I'll do a quick kind of spin session between like 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes in the morning. And then I do a little bit of stretching with my husband. So it's a great exercise for me or opportunity for me to exercise, but also a great time for me to spend with people that I care about in my life. I get a little bit of time with my mother in the morning, a little bit of time with my husband in the morning before I start my day officially. And I love it. It is such a beautiful thing when I added it to my schedule. But one thing I noticed is that working out's a little bit hard for me at times. Working out sometimes can be a little bit stressful for me. Working out sometimes means I'm pushing. And therefore, while I need that workout space, while I need that time to connect with my family, to connect with my loved ones, what I also needed is something else personal. I needed something that is less of a friction moment for me, but more of a nourishment moment. So therefore, when I'm changing in my morning schedule, is putting a slot of time in there specifically to do something that I love, specifically to do something that just delights me, and to do something that ultimately is super easy for me to do. It doesn't require me to have willpower like I need on that spin bike. It doesn't require me to go outside when it's cold outside and take that walk and get all dressed up and put those layers on, which isn't terribly difficult, but it does take a little bit of willpower because it's very easy to say, hey, it's cold outside today. Let's not take a walk. So, what I've started to do is find things that are just delightful to do in the morning. So, therefore, I always can start my day with a delightful experience. What do you think? As you're listening to this podcast, as you're listening to this live broadcast, or as you're watching this as a replay, let me know what you think about that. How important it is to have that personal nourishment moment that's a friction free activity in your morning. because I'm finding it's so important. Now, I haven't finalized what mine's going to be. I like to test things out and find my way there. But that I would say is one of my biggest changes that I'm making to my intentional morning to make sure that I really enjoy my morning before I jump into workday. The other thing I like to do, or I'm testing out, is my wake up time. What I found is my morning started to get too many things in it between, like I said, the walking, the spinning, the stretching, and then also a few other things that I do in the morning, getting in my smoothies, and also preparing for my day, creating checklists, creating my ultimate accomplishment project for the day. I was feeling like my morning was almost too jam packed. I almost started to feel like my morning routine required me to go from task to task. So therefore my morning routine was becoming less of this relaxation moment, less of this prepare for the big day moment. It was becoming an event in itself. So, one thing I started to do differently is switch up the way and the time I wake up. Starting to say, well, you know what? The mornings are pretty quiet in my house before everyone starts stirring, and not just in the house, really before even the outside world gets stirring. Often, what I find is waking up even 15 minutes earlier can help me not only add a little bit of time and space to my morning ritual or my morning routine, but also what it allowed me to do is give myself some extra time to prepare, some extra time if I'm finding that my routine was maybe a little bit too tight. And therefore, an extra 15 minutes, an extra 30 minutes could make a huge difference in my morning activities. And what I didn't have to do is try to steal it from my workday. Instead, I wake up early. Now, some of you might be like, Stephanie, don't steal it from your sleep. And I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is I'm going to bed a little bit earlier because the idea is my sleep is sacred. It's really important that I do it. And I want to make sure that you keep that sleep intact. So, what I'm saying is instead of staying up extra 15 minutes, especially at night when I'm mostly just kind of hanging out with family, maybe watching TV, maybe, reading something online, checking out an article. I'm saying, why not go to bed that extra 15 minutes or 30 minutes earlier if it can make me have a better and greater day the next day? And that's one of the big changes I'm making. And I'm curious if that would help you as well. The other thing I've started to do is adjust my work hours. It's so interesting when you think about running a business, especially as an entrepreneur, we often think about being available all the time, working all the time, getting things done all the time. And one thing that I've started to realize is my work schedule can really be different. My work schedule can really be dynamic. And what if, when I think about my intentional morning, the way I use my morning, schedule my morning, the way I give myself personal time, the way I prepare for my day, what if those timelines were different on different days? So, therefore, it wasn't that I always had to be ready at my desk at the same time every day. Maybe some days I have a little bit extra time in the morning, especially on a day like a Monday. Maybe Mondays, because Mondays you kind of come off the weekends and you're trying to jump into, that work mode. Does it make sense to push back your meeting times a little bit for some of you out there? Now, for me, Mondays are my grind days. So Mondays, I don't have meetings on Mondays or scheduled meetings, but Mondays are days I work on projects, tasks, and get things done. So I didn't have that meeting friction. But when I thought about my projects, I started to say, when do I start working on Monday? What's my start time? And maybe my start time on a Monday is different than my start time on a Wednesday or on a Thursday or other days of the week. And by giving myself a little bit of that flexibility in my work schedule, now my magical morning, my intentional morning, the things I do to prepare myself, to take care of myself, to do those accomplishments, and to nourish myself personally, do not have to be structured the same every day. I can give myself some flexibility And more importantly, I can give myself the creativity for some mornings to do things differently, to try something different, to mix it up. Because if I have extra time, that extra time in the morning allows me freedom to be a little bit creative. Because I love structure, I love schedules, I love getting stuff done. But for many of you out there, you're creative types. And for me, I have a creativity in me as well that I want to feed too. So, therefore, by picking one day a week, I change up my schedule, I change up my hours, I change up when I physically get into this office and start working. Now I can not only once again stay in the driver's seat on how I manage my mornings, but I also give myself a little bit of extra space, a little bit of extra time on those days to actually manage my morning differently. And I'm finding that it's working pretty well. I'm really liking it. And it's one of those things that I'm trying out, and I wanted to make sure I shared it with you. And then the other thing I would say for today, when you think about these great days, when you think about what these intentional mornings can be like, it's about that proactive activity. It's about truly making sure that the work that you do is all intentional. And that's one other thing I want you to take away as a big moment of today's discussion. What happens for many of us is we let our days be kind of guided by what's happening in the world, what catches our attention, what really disrupts us in the day. And one thing I've been doing differently, one thing that I've really learned as I've been using these techniques of creating my morning ritual is how proactive I want to be and how important it is that I don't get pulled in directions unintentionally. Or the other thing is, I can get distracted too. I mean, all of us, we're trying to live this life. We're not perfect. We're trying to really get so many things done, take care of so many things, so many people, and also learn and grow along the way. So therefore, we can't be a perfectionist in what we're doing. Instead, we have to grow as we go. So, therefore, what I want you to do is I want to make sure that when you get distracted, when you get pulled away, you don't beat yourself up. You just have a mechanism and a way for you to refocus again and be proactive. Because when you can sit down and say, this is what I'm going to get done today, this is what's going to be my magical moment today, this is how I create great days, and this is how today is going to be a great day, then what you can have is have them more often. Doesn't mean you get to have them all the time because things do happen. But what I'm trying to express to you today is that with those intentions, with you waking up every morning with a morning routine, with you waking up and actually making sure that you prepare yourself personally and professionally for that day, you have a greater chance of having that great day. And what I want to do today is inspire you to be proactive about it, to inspire you to mix it up at times, and inspire you to really make sure you're in the driver's seat, especially in those morning hours, that 6:30 to 7:30 like I mentioned, and also making sure that your morning routine, your approach to the morning, the way you prepare for the morning is you and personalized and not just something you heard someone else did do. Because at the end of the day, this is about preparing you for that great day. And the only way you can do it is to make sure that you have a plan that's right sized for you. So today, I want to inspire you to go make your morning routine. If you already have one, think about mixing it up, think about changing it up. Because the more you personalize it, the more it grows with you, the more it can stay that magical routine. That way, it can actually impact you and impact your day and make sure you achieve all the greatness that you deserve. All right? Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. Whether you joined me live, whether you are listening to this as a replay or on our podcast, I so appreciate you being with us. I so appreciate you listening to me. And I so appreciate you taking the time to absorb these ideas and these concepts because I think it's so important for all of us to grow and grow together. And I appreciate you really joining me on this journey as we all become better entrepreneurs and better people out there in the world. All right, take care, everyone. I'll see you at the next session. Bye.